neighborhood associations this morning to try to get people in to give some comment. We haven't had enough time. We don't have our questions answered. The real question is, as they always have said, what is the impact on the neighborhood, on our children, with an elementary school 1 block away? I expect these standards are set to try to protect people. We still don't know. We don't know the increase in total volume, total gallons of hexane that's going to go into the air, and just what the concentrate will be 1 block away. That's my greatest concern. We don't have enough information. We don't have enough time. I asked for an additional 30-day extension for public comment. I'm making a formal demand at this point in time for an extension of 30 days so we can bring the people in, have a meeting, bring everybody here, and maybe a couple dozen more, so we get our answers. More than likely, I think it's going to be a safe thing to do, but at this point, we don't know. We want to make sure that it's safe for the people here, make sure it's safe for our kids, and not some long-term detriment that's like putting a pig farm right next to a housing development. We don't want a pig farm next to our housing development, and we already live here. I want ADM to succeed. I'd like to see them put more jobs in the community, but we don't have enough information and enough time. We need a 30-day extension at the minimum. I'm making formal demand for such.
Suzette Jensen, 3127 Thompson Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa, 50317. Email is sjensen, Jensen, 3127@gmail.com. I share some of the same concerns as others, but I would comment that not only do we have one elementary school that's fairly close, we have another elementary school the other direction. We also have a university with approximately 2,200 students on campus every day, and we have a senior center not very far from there that has seniors that are retirement age and have health care issues and Alzheimer's issues. We also have a youth facility nearby. We have a lot of people that are going to try to be enjoying the outdoors. And I know from my days at Grandview that the smells from the plant were very prominent, so you have to wonder what else
one of the
is there
colleges
too.
here in Des Moines.
So I have concern for all these young people that are going to be outside. Would like to know how the VOCs, the emissions, are going to be measured, how far from the plant they're going to be measured. I would say also that we need an extension. I just found out about this late last night. Had to rearrange my schedule to be here. We represent in this room, a lot of us involved with neighborhood associations represent a lot of people, and with this short notice we couldn't get them here. Thank you.
As you can see, there are not a whole lot of people in this room.
My name's Valerie Madison. I'm not going to go into everything. I've already signed in, etc. And I think you answer everyone's questions to everyone. Does that make sense, number one? So Cherie asked a question, just don't answer hers. Answer it to everyone. Okay? Number two, I was thinking how I grew up in this neighborhood and gagged every morning from the smells coming from the soybean factory. I think if my parents had known what we were going to put up with in that neighborhood, they would not have moved there. But that's a long story, neither here nor there. I turned around and moved back in the neighborhood. Either I've gotten used to the smells or you've hidden it somehow. Now I'm worried about this because I'd like to finish out my life in this neighborhood. Nursing home or my personal home. I don't want to be poisoned to death. ADM has already tried to push us out, and we fought that and fought that and fought it. Now we're sitting here going, okay, now what's happening? And by the way, I, by chance, found out about this meeting at noon today. That's pretty bad timing.
Heather Ryan, 1253 East 37th Court, Des Moines, Iowa, 50317. Poli-sci Heather, that's P-O-L-I-S-C-I, Heather, H-E-A-T-G-R, @gmail.com. You can reach me on phone at 515-782-5282. My concern, in addition to all of these already well-articulated concerns, is property value and development of the east side. We already have great challenges in this very strained area of property development. Nobody wants to move into an area where the children potentially could be poisoned. We don't know if we can be poisoned because we don't have the information. But I'll tell you, if I was purchasing a house here, or if I was looking at developing any of the property surrounding any of this area, I would not do it. We're trying to develop this Eastgate Plaza. I wouldn't do it as a developer if I know that it's going to reek and potentially poison my clients as they come into my shop. I don't know why this hasn't been taken into consideration. It's not just a health issue, it's also a development issue. It's a property value issue. It's an issue for years to come that if they're poisoning our air, what's the incentive to develop on the east side? What's the incentive to make the east side beautiful and welcoming? There is none. It's plain and simple. It stands to reason. Nobody's going to want to come into an area that's disgusting, that stinks, and that they're going to get poisoned. And as a community leader, me finding out yesterday, I am very active. And if I found out yesterday, I assure you, the working men and women of the east side of Des Moines did not know, or else they'd be here as well, because they'd be expressing the same concerns that everybody else has. So I appreciate an answer to all of the different questions going to each one of these different people that have expressed an issue. Thank you.
Waiting to see if anyone wants to record any comments or write them.
I have one other question, just real quick, it's a short one. Yeah, one other question, Shereen Ortiz from Fairmont Park Neighborhood Association. In the literature that we were just given, it says ADM is proposing to make modifications to its Des Moines facilities. And you sort of inserted in there that the modifications would be made within their property. So my question is, will the factory itself, the physical structure be expanded, or are all the changes going to be contained within the existing facility? So is there going to be additions in structure to the facility itself? Will they be expanding the size of the structure?
Jeff Woody again. I think hearing these comments, I think everybody's unanimous in how not very well run this whole program is. So with Marlon and everybody else, I am also going to demand a 30-day extension on this. This is just ridiculous. This shouldn't be. We should have, you know, it's not like we don't pay taxes. We do pay a little bit of money, and we should be represented that way and not treated like a bunch of kids that don't know nothing. Thank you.
Just giving you another look at the small number of people who are here. Not all of them have spoken comments, some may be writing them. I am going to submit mine via email.
Does anyone else want to make a comment? Go ahead. I can always turn it back on after turn it off. I just,
Bob Mahaffey, City Councilman for Ward 2, which incorporates the area where ADM is. And one of my concerns is that, you know, once it's up and going, we don't have just one test. We have ongoing tests, so they can get reports back to see that we are staying within the various limits, and that at any time they don't run afoul of what the limits are. And that I'm also encouraged by the people requesting extensive time, because we really have not had enough time to address this. I didn't know about this until this afternoon, so I hopefully that we can extend this and have more comments in the future.
Clumsy today. Suzette Jensen. I have a question I'd like to have answered about emissions. Should there be an emission failure? How soon is something like that reported, and would an elementary school close by or another facility that might have young people outside be notified so that they wouldn't have those children or those young people outside during that time period, or even our senior citizens in the area? I would be very, very interested in knowing how we would follow up on any kind of emission failure.
okay, if there's nothing else at this time, I'll just turn it off. If someone does have something they want to put on the record, let me know. We can turn it back on. You can make an additional comment. So, okay. With that, it's off. So, you know, we've got a little over an hour. Like I said, we need to make sure we have time for the folks out front to clean up so that they can go home too. So I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. Some of the questions I know I'll have to get back to you because some of the things as far as like one of the questions I just heard was about reporting times. There are specific rules that they have to report as far as under our rules. They have to notify us within a certain amount of time if they discover an excess emissions, but that's in our compliance section. I would have to talk to our folks over there. We can get that information to you. I'm not sure as far as Polk County, what type, if that's the same as ours. It's the same. Okay, so we can get that information to folks as far as on something like that, as far as emission wise. But
You answered the question. I was going to see what is your procedure.
yeah, I don't remember the timing right offhand, but I know if they have excess emissions, I think it's within 8 hours that they have to verbally notify the department. And in this case, because it's also Polk County, I think they have to notify both of us at the same time. So, you know, and then they have to send a written notification with a certain amount of time. So there are procedures there. I heard along the lines of compliance, someone asked about testing. Because of the process, they don't actually go out and test the emissions. They do what they call a mass balance. So they track how much hexane they get in that comes into the plant, and then they track how much they have to replace, and that difference is what is assumed to be emitted, even though some of that actually stays in the product. A small amount of it will stay in like the flakes or things like that, some of the byproducts. But so it's based on a mass balance, which is actually more accurate than most other measurements. because it actually is, they're replacing X amount, you know what's coming in the door, so you know what's being replaced, and you know that's what's going out the stack then. Let's see. I don't remember all the questions offhand. There was a question about whether or not the structure, as far as my understanding is, they're not expanding the building or anything. It's modifications to the equipment that's inside. They're either putting in more efficient equipment, maybe a little bit bigger. I know in some cases they're actually taking out the existing equipment that's old and replacing with newer equipment that can process things better. So
The other part of that is, who's going to provide the oversight to make sure that the technology that they're claiming they're going to install is actually installed, and whether or not it's working properly?
some of the technology is already there. It's the extractor, which is what they use is, the hexane is basically scrubbed out with a mineral oil. It's a mineral oil absorber. That's the control. So the hexane is attracted to that mineral oil, and then they are able to take the hexane out of that mineral oil, and they reuse it in their process. That technology, that's already existing. That's already at their plant. That was put in new in 2007. That's the technology that's used for soybean processing across the country. It is the best type of control. The other types of units that they're putting in, the other equipment, between Polk County and the department, we'll do inspections. They can't start any construction until the permits are issued, if they are issued. That's typical of all facilities. Any permit that we issue, they have to wait until we actually issue it before they can start their construction. We often will go out, I don't know, as far as Polk County, some of our field office inspectors will go out and check when sites have been constructed, do an inspection at the facility. So those are the mechanisms that we use from the compliance section. I could give you a better description after talking to our compliance folks. I don't work in that section on a day-to-day basis.
Well, here
I
on
know
point
in
number-
general what they
Point
do.
number 16 says continuous emission monitoring is not required by this permit at this time.
Right, and that's because in the condition 14 and 15, they have in here where, it would be on the other page. Yeah. So they have to track the amount of solvent they use. And because of that,
In other
this
words,
is the
the
mass
company
balance.
has
That is
to
really
track
basically
their
like a
own
continuous emission.
emissions and
What the condition 16 is
releases.
for an actual monitor in the stack. But that's not necessary in this case because it's assumed that whatever is coming in, as far as being the hexane that's being replaced, is going out the stack. So it's being measured through the record keeping that we have in the permit in condition 14 and 15.
Assume's not the best word to use.
You know what
What's
that
that?
means?
so assume is not the best word to
Assume
use.
is not the best word to use, in my opinion.
No,
I would tell you what that
Yeah, that don't mean.
layman's terms mean, what I think you know, what the,
No, it is, a mass balance is the best measure of compliance, because what is coming in is going out, is the way it's looked at. And that is just a straight mass balance. Anytime you have a mechanical type process, whether it's a continuous emission monitor, a stack test, you're measuring out of the stack, but there's always an error with any type of equipment that you have. That is the next best method as far as measurements of emissions. But a mass balance, as far as what goes in, goes out, that's really the best measurement you can have.
Wouldn't that be a paperwork thing? I mean,
Well, they'd have to have records, they have production records, or I should say, they have shipping records as far as what they're getting in. So it is record keeping is what it is, but it's based off of actual, they know how much they're getting in, and that's what they're basing it off of.
so it's up to them to overlook themselves.
Well,
What you're telling us.
but then that's where we have to do inspections, and then because they are a large enough facility, they go through what's called the Title V operating permit program, which is a permit that they have to get, it's good for 5 years. That permit basically takes all the permits that they have at the facility, combines it, puts in certain, what they call compliance insurance monitoring. They have to submit annual emission inventories to, I think, both Polk County and the state. They have to certify that they're in compliance. And then along with any inspections, our inspectors go out, they will ask for the records that go with that.
Okay, but you're allowing them to self-report is the problem here. You're going by the information that they're giving you. What we're asking for is oversight by the Iowa DNR and hopefully city officials so that there is actually oversight and assurance of compliance. Because the physical evidence in our neighborhood does not convince us that they have been compliant to when we have dust particles, when we have grain flying through the neighborhood and we can still smell that plant. The physical evidence is real, and the DNR is going to have to deal with us and deal with that.
Correct. Somebody's got to be out there and test.
Yeah. And here's the other problem. What are
That's
penalties?
what you guys get paid for.
You know, and Chris, I'm not. Don't take this personal. You've been hung out to dry. I've seen this too many times in the Iowa DNR, and I do not envy your position. But you need to tell them we want oversight, independent oversight by you guys, or to call in Region 7 EPA out of Kansas and tell them to get up here and back you up. And that's going to be a tough deal to do because of what's going on the state government level. But we want an overview and oversight by an independent body. We do not want you to rely on just the information that ADM is giving you because we don't trust them. From our experience living in this neighborhood for over 2 decades, we just don't. And the other problem is, what are the penalties when they exceed emission levels? What are the penalties?
That I can't speak to.
I'm sure you don't, but I can tell you, they're probably ridiculously low or non-existent.
That I can tell you, it all depends on the type of violation. There's a process that they go through. I've been involved with compliance cases where it's ranged from $1,000, and I've been involved where it's referred to the Attorney General where we've collected $1 million from a facility. So that is, it really depends on what type of violation they have. There's so many factors that go into that. And I'm not in the compliance section.
And they got the money to
but that's where that is really dependent upon what happens. I can just tell you in general what I've seen in my experience that I've been involved in.
And I would bet that in general that there are not stiff enough penalties given so that there aren't repeat violations. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a slap in the hand.
The request for a 30-day extension, do we have to do something legally, formally, fill out a form? Who decides that? And if we do get it, it isn't any good unless we have another meeting where we get people to answer our questions on quality of life and safety. Because we really, most of what we're here is we're just unsure that it's safe.
That's right.
And also that it's going to worsen the quality of life. We want at least to maintain and not make it worse. So we need somebody to come in and continue to answer these things.
What I would suggest, sending me, you have my email address, I would suggest sending me an email making that request in writing so that way we also have it in
Is there a
writing.
form or procedure that I have to do?
No.
There is. I want a copy of it and I'll fill it out.
I don't know of any form or any procedure other than, like I said, just to make sure, I would put it in writing, send me an email.
With another 30 days, will you bring the people, bring the ADM people and everybody necessary, the chemists that we need to tell us?
I would make your request, whatever specific, I would make the request as far as if you want an extension of the public comment period, I would make that request along with any other requests you want to make, and then at least it's in writing. I'd have to pass that along to
You understand the problem, it's
management,
quality of
so-
life and safety. That's what people are concerned about. Everybody's here on the same page.
Yeah, but I would just make sure to do that in writing.
I'll tap it to you
I know it's
tomorrow
on here, but just to follow up with writing, I'm real big on making sure things are in written form, and we do
I
accept
just
emails.
recorded myself.
Yep,
You
and
got it.
I know I've got that, but it's just to always make sure that you're covered as far as the attorneys and that. I just always recommend that have something in writing too. Okay.
Yeah, I grew up I went to school in Vinton, Iowa, and there is an ammonia processing plant there. And we had drills in case the plant had a leak. And fortunately, I never had to go on into school lockdown because of an ammonia leak. Are there any procedures in the event of a large release that people in offices, stores, medical facilities, or schools, or whatever, are there procedures available that these large groups of people can go to in case there is a huge release? I live on the Des Moines River, basically, in a Delray Heights condos, and when that smell comes downriver, it's so bad that the skunks who inhabit our condo dumpster want to hurl.
As far as releases, as far as chemical releases and that, I think most of that's handled by like emergency response, and they would have certain other requirements. There's not really requirements under our regulations. I do believe those would be under like emergency response, but it also depends on what it is. I know ammonia plants have a much different standard. I'm not familiar with that, but like I said, I think it's under like emergency response where they have certain requirements.
Yeah, it might be something to look into.
So we should probably get a hold of the fire, the hazmat team and see what they would suggest on that.
Yeah, I don't know if they're the one, they might. I know we have an emergency response, section within the DNR. I don't know as far as like Polk County, what they have. I'm just not real familiar on that.
I was talking about the Des Moines Fire Department.
Yeah, and they may. I just don't know.
So if we get a hold of them, they might be able to.
If there is a 30-day extension, how are you going to notify not only us, but the entire city?
Well, at least the folks that are here, I would send the notice specifically to you, probably by email or letter if I don't have an email address. And then typically how we did it with this one, just like all our public notices, they go in the public notice section of the Des Moines Register.
2 days notice isn't working.
It was actually in the Register over about 30 days ago.
Nobody here is registered.
Well,
But
it's on the Register, and it's also on our website.
We read the Register.
Yeah, it's also on our website, but I know some people may not go there, but we keep all this on our website, on the Air Quality Bureau website, and we're required to put it in the newspaper of largest circulation in the area. And in this area, it'd be Des Moines Register. When we do it out, like in say southeast Iowa, I've done a lot with the Quad City Times, and then we also still put it in the Register also, because some people still do get it across the state, even though it's not as widespread as when I was growing up. I remember everywhere the Register was, but that's not quite the case anymore. But if you signed in, we would notify you specifically.
Let me ask a couple of questions on procedure.
Yeah.
As I was reading this, and we're talking about the hexane here, which I see in the first page is under volatile organic compounds.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you not also concerned with the fine particulate?
That's because for this project, the only thing that triggered for the federal PSD program is VOC. So that's the only thing that I would work on in this case.
So nothing else with air you're concerned about?
Well, there were other air emissions, and that is being permitted and reviewed by Polk County.
Okay, can you give a little more explanation?
And that's if in here where it talks about construction permitting, and this little box there, what we have is there's two county programs in the state. The state of Iowa does all the permitting except for those two counties, Lynn and Polk County. So they handle all the permitting in those counties except for the PSD program, which is a federal program which we cannot delegate to the county level. So for those pollutants that trigger the federal program, we write permits for the equipment that has those pollutants. Any other equipment associated with the project that does not have, in this case, VOC, so anything that has fine particulate is being permitted and reviewed by Polk County. And I do know that they did review the project, and there was computer-aided dispersion modeling to evaluate whether or not the project can meet the health-based air standards that are set by EPA. And I know that that was done according to everything that was submitted. According to that model, it's predicting that the health-based standards will be met. And that information is in the technical support document that I have out.
And that's in writing.
That's in writing, yes.
So we get
And
that
our-
in writing, so if they don't, we'll say, well, here it is.
Yeah, that is in writing. And I know Polk County is, the draft permits I've seen, they're proposing quite a few stack tests. So actual tests of the stacks for particulate. Like I said, in the case of VOC, it's a different, it's something that we can actually do by tracking of their material usage. For particulate, it's really difficult to do that. You actually have to go out and do a test. And so they are requiring quite a few tests on the stacks that are associated with the project.
Thank you.
As you can see, a few people have left the room already after
Any
they've
other questions?
made their comments and questions.
Since they have a malfunction, and in particular, it's get to the point where it's dangerous to the residents, who forces them to shut that down until it's complete, and then is it inspected before they start up the facility again?
And I don't know the overall compliance procedures between like the state and Polk County, but if I remember right, once they've started operating, once they start operating any equipment, then Polk County is the lead as far as on compliance matters. So if there was malfunctions, Polk County would deal with that. We provide oversight. We work with Polk County, but I think Polk County does the compliance. They may consult us, and I think from time to time, our field office, which Field Office 5 is located in Des Moines, I think from time to time they will do inspections within the county, but typically we let the county programs run their program. We've got enough other sources that we're looking at across the state also. But I think that's how it works. If my basic understanding of the compliance sections.
How many sightings for lack of compliance or exceeding emissions has ADM been cited for up to now?
That I couldn't tell you. I
Who would
really
know
don't. You would want to contact Polk County. That would be the best place because, like I said, they handle the compliance portion. You could contact our compliance section, but like I said, I think because it's handled by Polk County, I don't think our compliance section would necessarily know that information offhand. I know they talk, but I don't know if they get all that information.
So when you say Polk County specifically, what part of the department?
The email address and the phone number are there. The Polk County Air Division.
Got it.
Bottom of that sheet.
Got it.
Yep. Just like if you have issues that you see as far as like, particulate crossing the lot line, if you have problems, I would contact Polk County. They are, they oversee everything within the county. Like I said, from a compliance standpoint, those are the folks that I would contact on things like that. So Polk County Air Division, they handle that. And like I said, we work with them, just like we do with Lynn County. They oversee their county programs, they do most of the permitting within the county, other than the federal program as far as the PSD program.
So how long before the final decision on that? If it's gonna be, if we get the extension 30 days and then plus what, 10, 20?
Well, let's just go out, once the comment, whether it's extended or not, once the comment period ends, we give a few extra days, because if someone mails in something, the post office, that's happened to one of our attorneys once where, a deadline ended and they were ready to do something, and then here we got something in the mail a couple days later. So we always wait a few days. I need to send this off to have it transcribed. I don't do transcriptions. That's I've tried not to.
Didn't work very well.
No, it's a little. I'm a fast typer, but when you're trying to listen and type, and but we have someone that's very good at that. So I have to wait for them to transcribe it. I'll have to group all the comments to make to show which ones are similar, and then I have to go through and respond to all of them. Our draft responses, which then goes through my supervisor and maybe even another level of management. And then from all that, then we'll make a final determination, which could be that we approve it. We could approve it with changes to the permits. We could decide, well, some of the comments, we need to amend things in the permits, which then forces us to go back out for comment. And then there's always that chance that you end up denying it, which, as long as all the state and federal regulations can be met, really at that point we would approve, because that's our authority. We can't go outside that authority, so it's a matter of are those regulations, will those standards be met, and if they can be met based off of everything that we have, we have to approve it at that point. So all these comments, anything I get from EPA, Region 7, all that gets put together. Polk County, they can comment on it too, just like the public. It's a matter of how long it takes to go through all the comments, transcribe them. So I've had projects where it's been within a day, just because we didn't receive comments, and I've had projects where it extended out to 2 to 3 weeks after the end of the comment period, just because of the number of comments that we had.
So what I'm hearing is that the residents really don't have any kind of say in this at all. It's all up to you guys. The residents, us coming here really it's a waste of time for us. Is that what I'm kind of gathering here?
Well, it's a matter, you can make comments on the permits. Are there things that we need to look at, that we need to explain better? Is there something that we missed? But when it comes down to the regulations, are they going to be able to meet the regulations? And that's really what it comes down to. Certain things, like I was at one public hearing where people were upset about the zoning. They didn't want the facility to be located there because of zoning. That's outside my purview. We have no authority on that. That's that local area, what it meant. I can only rely on what the air quality portion of it is.
So tell me, give me the structure of this. Is the DNR, are they up here and everybody else down here? Or does Polk County have the authority to say no?
Polk County can make comments. I don't know if they didn't like something, if they could appeal it. I don't know. I'm not an attorney,
But
so I don't know.
You guys are up here. You make the final decision. No, if you
We make the determination whether or not we think that the permit, whether or not the equipment can meet all the state and federal regulations, then either approve or deny. So we make that determination, and then and that's where I'm not an attorney. I don't know what all the recourses are. I know, like a facility, if they don't like something in the permit, they can appeal it. I know EPA, if they don't like the permit we issue, they could actually sue us, which means they take us to court, or they can wait until that Title V operating permit is up for renewal, and then they can object to the Title V permit. But that could be a couple of years down the line. As far as citizens and other folks, I don't know if you would have to appeal it or sue us on the permit. That I don't know. I would have to talk to one of the attorneys in our office and find out what the structure is there. I just don't know that off.
So if Polk County says they didn't, in other words, my question was, say the fire chief says a hazmat. No, we think this whatever that gas is. Hexane is dangerous to everyone in this 5-block radius or 10-block radius. If they say no, we don't want this, you won't listen to them.
We would have to respond to their comment depending on what they, how they presented that, we'd have to respond to the comment and evaluate that whether or not it meets the regulations that have been set upon us for, by EPA. Because EPA sets our standards. And, at this point, we've drafted a permit that, based off the information we have, that meets the state and federal regulations. In fact, in some cases exceeds the federal regulations. As far as I said, the back limit, it is going to be the tightest back limit for this type of process in the country.
Just looking for information.
Yeah, no.
So how many actual field inspectors do you have that actually specifically deal with air quality issues in the state of Iowa?
You would have to make, if you ask that question, I can get that. I really don't know myself, because we have 6 field offices across the state. So the state's broken up into 6 areas, 3 in the north part, 3 in the southern. Each field office has a different number, and each field office has a certain number that are dedicated to air, and they go by full-time employees. So,
So how many factories require inspection?
really, every facility.
Do you know? What
We have
the-
7,200 facilities in the state of Iowa. When you consider anyone that could be from gas stations, terminals, to auto body shops, to dry cleaners, all the way to ADM, to Mid-American Energy. There's 7,200 facilities.
So you probably don't have 50 inspectors.
No, and out of those 7,200, we don't go to every one of them, of course. But out of that 7,200, there's also, again, a lot of those, like the small dry cleaners, small body shops. Maybe I shouldn't use the term, but mom and pop places is kind of what I've always grown up with.
Small business.
Yes, very, very small business. And, and we will go out to those places from time to time, but typically the reason our inspectors go out there is because there was a complaint. So if someone complained,
Trigger inspection.
yeah, and they'll just go out and find out
She
what
said
was going on.
complaints trigger inspection.
From that 7,200, then we have the Title V facilities, as I mentioned, which are the largest facilities in the state. There are about 300 across the whole state. Those, we do an annual inspection. I think is what they try to do. I think it typically ends up maybe every other year, because again, 300 of them. And then when you're doing the complaints and other things, because we also do like open burning complaints, things like that. So there's the inspectors are going out to a lot of different places.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're spread, and I'm sure that
So
your
for-
budget's been slashed pretty
So from there, well, the Title V program, that is actually, facilities pay fees. The federal government, when they set the Title V program, they required that companies that trigger that are large enough for that program have to pay a fee to support the program. So they pay on a ton basis. So for every ton of emissions that they have to pay a certain fee. I think, I don't know the number offhand, it's around $55, $60 per ton. So they pay that fee, and that's what supports the Title V operating permit program. So you have 300 facilities there, and then from that, you have the facilities that are major for the PSD program, and so that's even a smaller amount. And those facilities, especially with a project, whenever they have an expansion, we go out to those all the time. And the PSD facilities like ADM, our power plants, it used to be IPSCO Steel, now SSAB, Southeast Iowa. The fertilizer plants, both the Iowa Fertilizer and CF Industries, both of those facilities are major. I've worked on the permits for both of those facilities. So, when you're talking the really large facilities, it's a much smaller amount. And then there's always facilities that they try to make it out to every year. I know EPA conducts inspections in the state, and they have a list that they go off of. They pick certain ones every year that they go to. I don't know how they pick. That's a different story. But I've heard of facilities, and we've had work on permits for facilities that EPA did an inspection, and they can range from a smaller company to a large company. So, the compliance world, they have their own set inspections. Like I said, each field office has, I know Field Office 5 here in Des Moines, we have several people on staff that were former air employees. They worked in the Air Quality Bureau, and they transferred over in there. Now, they don't work in air specifically, they work in maybe water, wastewater, other areas, but they also will go out and do air inspections.
So how often right now does ADM get inspected?
That I couldn't tell you. That I don't know. Because that, again, that would be Polk County that would do the inspections there, since they would handle the compliance portion, so they would be doing the inspections in the county.
So it actually behoove you if they sell more tonnage, or if they bring more tonnage in, because then you get paid more money.
Yeah, but the one thing that we found out across the country, and this is where a lot of air programs are having more budget issues, is that the Title V program is working because companies are paying less because they're emitting less. Over time, emissions across the country, and we've seen it in Iowa, emissions are going down overall. So they are paying less into us, which has put us under a budget constraint a lot of times. And I know other states I've talked to have run into the same thing. So yeah, if they were emitting more, you would think that's the case, but in some ways it isn't. Facilities are becoming more efficient, they're putting in better controls, because they're looking at it, well, we don't want to pay all that money in either. So it's a combination of things.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking for, just a thought.
Yeah.
Is there any involvement with the city itself, with the city of Des Moines, in on
They
this?
were notified. They were actually, like the mayor and the board of supervisors would. I've sent all of them because they're required by rule. They're required to get a specific notification. So the mayor and the board of supervisors, along with Polk County Air Division, they were all given a specific notice that this project was going out for comment.
Can anyone from the city comment?
Yeah, anyone from the public can comment. So they could send me comments yet before the end of the comment period. Anything else? And if you think of anything, on that sheet I've got my email address, my phone number. I will tell you sometimes it's difficult to get a hold of me by phone. I spend a lot of time in various meetings, and just because as one of the senior engineers on staff, I work with a lot of our other engineers with training and things and such things. So if you send me an email and you want to talk to me, feel free to send me an email. We can set up a time that I can call you that's best for you as far as within business hours. I'm not going to call you, when I'm at home, that type of thing. So even though I don't live very far away from here, so.
Oh, well, which way?
Would be west.
Oh, I was gonna say, too bad you're not in our neighborhood.
Yeah, no,
Maybe hit you up for donation.
Yeah, I live over in kind of the more north Beaverdale area, just north of Douglas Avenue.
So you won't be affected by this too much? Just
Well,
as poor people over there?
The thing about, in this case with VOC, because it is a precursor of ozone, it's more of a regional type pollutant, because VOC combines with any nitrous oxide along with the sunlight, and you get ozone. And ground level ozone, of course, is bad. So really, when you get that, it covers an area. It's not really just in one specific place. It's kind of an area pollutant. And especially ozone as a runner, ozone is something that concerns me, along with any pollutant, because I do run a lot. I run the Neil Smith Trail over here. I run out in West Des Moines. I do a lot of running. This year was my 17th dam. So,
Speaking of if there is a release and then it rains and then that comes down, is there a way to deal with that? If you've heard of, about acid rain, obviously. I don't know if hexane becomes acid with water, but just is there any way to deal with that?
I That's some of the chemistry I'm not sure of on that. I don't know what would happen in that case.
So when you were talking about that area, how large an area are you talking about then if there was a release? But, I mean, blocks?
I don't know.
It's a simple guess. I mean,
Yeah.
It depends on the wind, too.
Well, but it could be, wind velocity, you're looking at how much, if it's, depending on the amount, that can have a different impact than if you're talking a ton compared to hundreds of tons. I really couldn't judge that. I know at one time EPA, they don't have a model that can really predict, VOC and ozone. Now they are, apparently working on one, where particulate and SO2, sulfur dioxide, or nitrous oxides. EPA has a model, a computer-aided model called AirMod, where they can actually predict concentrations and show whether or not there's an issue against the health standards. With VOCs and ozone, they really don't have that type of model set up because of all the chemistry that gets involved there. Because when you get all those pollutants together and how it reacts, you have to do a reactive type model, and that really just hasn't been developed yet at this point. I know they're working on something along those lines, but I don't know when they plan on releasing anything like that. So in that case, we really have to rely on monitors. And that's the other thing I can let you know as far as in the responses. We do have monitors across the state. I do believe we have an ozone monitor in Des Moines. And that was in my support document talking about what levels that was reading. And I know it's within the air quality standards. And I know EPA is looking at possibly lowering the ozone standard. To what level we don't know. I think they're talking about having that come out next month. But sometimes EPA scheduling, when they say next month, it's 2 months or 3 months. But I think they're actually ordered by the court to do that by that time. But
So where's this monitor at?
I don't know.
By ADM?
I don't know where it's at.
Well, let's get a portable one over there.
That one.
Yeah.
Is,
It's at 1907 Carpenter.
okay, 1907.
1907
Okay.
Carpenter is the address where that,
They're
where the
not-
ozone
No,
monitor
they're like
is
little,
at. It's on top of a
yeah,
building.
they're like little, almost not quite trailer homes, but they kind of little smaller trailer home almost, you could think of it.
And we do have a downwind monitor too, it's Slater, Iowa. And those two monitors are pretty identical in the design value, which is a 3-year average, and it gives you an indication of whether it's in compliance with the health standard. So,
And that will work for this area over here?
yes, it does, it represents
So you
a
can-
downwind impact of the city of Des Moines.
That's the main thing. You want to make sure that you can just focus that in right over here on the northeast side.
Yeah, and you can go to the Polk County Air Division's website and our air quality website, and I know they have information about the monitors, and they have real-time data on some of the pollutants. So, I would encourage going to those websites and checking those out too. I know on ours, we have right on there, it has what they call the air quality index. They can kind of tell you what the area, what the region is as far as that day, how the air quality is looking. And it varies from day to day, and from the summer it can be different than in the winter. And when we've had some of the wildfires, especially in Canada, we
Oh,
had
yeah, that was
issues
bad.
here, because of basically transport.
Is there a website you go to look at that?
Yes, there is. Yep. I've got some business cards that I'll hand out.
Oh, okay, yeah, that'd be great, because we'll just put that right.
I will get one of those cards and tell you what the website is that he
And the air quality
mentioned.
index is reported every day on our website,
Yeah.
and it gives you an indication of what the air quality is like in the city of Des Moines.
And is there a standard, is it city of Des Moines standard, or, is there certain standards that you go by, and then what the city of Des Moines, is that possible to read? For people like myself, it's not very smart.
It's like color coded. Yeah.
Well, that's
So,
even better, yeah.
so
Well,
Well,
I just can't see reds or blues, but.
if you're colorblind, that might be a problem, but if there is text on the color bar, then you'd be able to tell that.
yeah.
Yeah, So green is a good day, yellow would be a moderate day, and then the orange category would be a hazardous day.
Okay.
And we are rarely in the hazardous category.
Well, until they get this other mission going. And then we'll be seeing a lot, well, I won't be seeing it, but everybody else is gonna be seeing it.
I don't want to have to wear a mask just to go outside.
Anything else? Otherwise, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Because believe me, I've done a lot of these branch, I'll drive 3 hours and no one shows up, so.
Well, if we know a little ahead of time,
We hope you
believe me.
made over your time.
In this case, I only had to go 10 minutes.
Well, see, you get home a lot faster.
Yeah.
Can I have one of your cards? Is that what?
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. And like I say, wasn't trying to give you a hard time, just that they're just, typical government stuff.
Okay, the website is, he just handwrote polkcountyiowa.gov. And this is a card, it's the County Public Works Department. And I'm going to go over here and grab one of those sheets.
We do inspections at the facility.
Walking the parade. Yeah, still could have a bum toe. I could have kind of a bum toe to the trend. It doesn't look bad, but it sores and boils.
See, that, try as I might, I can't get my shoe on, so I have to wear a slipper. I'm an idiot, but that's enough.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it'll get better.
I know how that
It
goes.
just takes a while.
And then,